Are you a horse owner? Get exclusive discounts on brands like John Deere and Big Ass Fans with equine discounts. If you're a paying member of any equine association, you qualify. And as an added bonus, a percentage of every sale through equine discounts is returned to the equine industry. Go to equinediscounts.com to receive your discounts.
You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Greetings, everyone. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily, episode 1593. This time, Laura Kenny, Extension Educator for Penn State Extension Office, joins Horses in the Morning co-hosts Glenn and Jamie to talk about trees and pastures. And they're also going to answer the question you've always wanted to ask, what the heck is an extension office?
Want to reach a passionate, engaged audience of horse lovers? The Horse Radio Network, with thousands of listeners worldwide, offers unique sponsorship opportunities to connect your brand with horse owners, riders, and enthusiasts. Over 90% of our listeners have bought a product from a HRN ad in the past year. Partner with HRN and take your brand to the next level. Visit www.horseradionetwork.com/advertise today.
Well, it's our Horse Health Report, and it's brought to you by Laura Kenny, who's an extension educator for the Penn State Extension Office, on her article called Trees in Horse Pastures, and some of them are bad. Well, hey, Laura, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So you're an extension educator for Penn State, right?
That is correct, yes.
So what does that mean? What do you do?
So extension is an arm of every land-grant college, and so our job is to do education for the agricultural community. So I work specifically with the horse community and the horse industry, but we also have agricultural agents who work with crops. We've got family consumer science agents that work with, families on things like canning and nutrition. So we've got a little bit of everything, but my personal job is to work with the horse industry, and I do a lot of programming and writing around pasture management, horse health and care, and that sort of thing.
Okay. So my wife and I just bought 5 acres, and it was nothing but really thick trees. So we had to have it cleared. And after they were done clearing, we left a lot of trees. And as we're getting the farm prepared, she said, "Get your chainsaw." They left some that we have to cut down, and chokecherry was a bunch of them. But you did an article called Trees and Horse Pastures, and it went over, and I like the subtitle too, What Trees Provide a Good Source of Shade and Pastures and Which Ones Are Bad. So
pretty much.
Let's talk about the toxic trees. Let's go over those, because I think one of our neighbors has horses and didn't realize that chokecherry trees were bad. So I think a lot of people don't know. So can we go through them and talk about which are the main culprits?
Of course, yeah. And, as I go through this list, I will say that I have seen most of these trees in horse pastures as I go out on farm visits and help people. And the horses have been just fine. So I think, it's sort of a risk tolerance here, because the worst could happen, but a lot of times it doesn't. So my first tree on the toxic list is the red maple. So this one has very toxic leaves, but they're mostly toxic when they wilt or fall off of the tree. So something about that wilting process releases a toxin and makes it more available for the horse. And it can cause death. It's very, very toxic. So our biggest concern with a red maple tree would be if a branch comes down in a storm and it's full of leaves, and over the next couple of days, those leaves start to wilt, and your horse goes and clears them off the branch. The branch or the leaves that are fresh on the branches, on the tree, I'm not so worried about. Additionally, when the leaves fall in the autumn, they are somewhat toxic. They remain toxic for about 30 days or so, but a horse would have to eat a couple of pounds of them to start, becoming sick. So red maples, again, I see them all over. they don't, automatically mean your horses are in danger if they've been living with it in the pasture for quite some time and they've been fine. It's just one of those things that the risk is there. So if you are very risk averse, maybe you want to get rid of that red maple.
Gotcha. And then the
risk averse also translates to horses try to kill themselves all the time. So just take one less thing.
I like how you say in here, this can result in rapid death. It's like, well, that's clear.
It can. Yeah, like a lot of times you don't even see the symptoms.
How about choke cherry? That's the one a lot of people see, and we have them in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, I see these everywhere too. These have cyanide in the pits of the cherries, the leaves, the bark, the shoots. So it's kind of the same deal where if a branch falls off and those leaves start to wilt, it sort of releases the cyanide into a form that's more easily toxic to the horse. So same thing. If a branch comes down in a storm, you are in danger. Your horses could be in danger if they go out and eat it. So I think the moral of the story here is if you have a branch come down in a storm, just get it out of there as quickly as you can.
Gotcha. What other ones should we look for?
We have got horse chestnut, which is also called buckeye. So they have very pretty white flowers most of the time. They're pretty easy to
Is this the one
identify.
that drops the buckeye nuts, like Ohio State buckeyes, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's why they're called that. The black locust is another tree that is toxic to horses. It's got big spines where the twig attaches to the branch, so that helps in identifying it. Oaks, which are very
we have
common,
none of those.
are
We have
actually
no
on my
live oaks in
toxic list.
Florida.
Really?
No, I'm joking. We have them everywhere.
I was going to say, I'm like, I don't know about
So
that.
how are the oak trees toxic?
So the most common issue with the oaks is the green acorns, right? So, as they mature, they turn brown. So when they're still immature and young and green, if they were to fall to the ground and you had a horse just absolutely gorge themselves on these acorns, that could result in sickness.
My Hackney pony, by the way, we have tons of acorns because there's live oak trees everywhere. And they're beautiful, right? Nobody wants to cut down the big live oaks because they're beautiful. And my pony will eat hundreds of pounds of these acorns. Now, I think he's eating them when they fall off and they're brown. But he will eat every acorn in the pasture. He hasn't died because I think he's probably eating them after they're browned.
Could be.
So
that's tricky.
So first of all, Glenn, you're lucky your pony's not dead. That's ridiculous. It should not be eating. Your pony's already fat.
We could
weight
not
problem.
We don't have the time to take the acorns out of the pasture. There's so many.
So, but they're not as bad if they're brown, you're saying, versus, because we have some oak trees in the pasture. My husband loves these trees more than me. We're the horses.
Mm-hmm.
So we have had, the one that drops the most acorn is fenced off, but they're everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. Yeah. And so I've talked to many different vets about the things, and I've never heard the green, but some vets are like, oh, it's a good source of protein. And other vets are like, your horse is going to die. So
yeah,
you're saying
it probably just depends on whether they've seen a case of it or not.
Yeah.
It's probably true.
And again, I see these absolutely everywhere in horse pastures, and I'm not seeing horses dropping dead from this right and left.
Gotcha.
Not something I'm super, super concerned about, but it is a risk. It's always a risk.
Now, the one we all hear about, whether you're really into horses or not, you casually hear about this from the old timers, is walnut trees, is black walnut trees.
Mm-hmm.
So why black walnut trees?
Black walnut trees are a really interesting case because they don't necessarily have to be consumed to be a problem. It's actually the wood from the tree. So if you were to get some hardwood shavings from like a lumber mill or something and you don't really know what's in them, if they were to contain even a very small percentage, 20% black walnut shavings, that can trigger laminitis in your horse.
Yeah, this is the one we hear a lot about, and it's sad because black walnut trees are pretty and walnuts are good.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
But, so it is sad. But I know we had one actually in the one farm we lived in, and Jennifer was like, and this tree had to be 3 feet around. It was enormous. And she's like, get the chainsaw out. That one has to go. So it had to go.
Yeah. See, that's one that I'm not sure if it is better or worse to remove it. In the short term, you're creating sawdust that's going in your pasture, right? So then you've got that on the ground. And then, it's not like eating the leaves is going to make them sick. Perhaps the walnuts that fall down could get moldy. There could be mycotoxins in that. But yeah, I don't know whether it's safer to cut them down or leave them.
Yeah, interesting. And fencing off a black walnut tree, they're so wide that you'd take half your pasture. Fencing off.
Absolutely.
They're so big.
Yeah, they're massive.
The other thing, I have a relative that always said, trees are dirty. I hate trees. They're dirty. And they lived in the city, by the way. And they're right. Trees are dirty. They shed all the time. They leaves. They are dirty. And then the other thing, you talk about it in your article, trees and fencing. They're always taking down our fences. We do have a love-hate relationship with trees when you're a horse person.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I get it.
So this is a great article. Everybody should go check it out. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. There's more trees than we talked about here, crabapple trees and other trees, mesquite and things like that you've probably heard of or heard the old timers talk about. But I love this article. I love how concise it was, and we appreciate you coming on this morning to talk about it. I think it's something everybody needs to think about.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and I'm happy to talk about it.
All right. Thanks, Laura. And the website, too, for what you guys do is extension.psu.edu, correct?
Correct. Yep. So if you go to that website, there's a menu button. And if you click on that menu button, you'll see animals and livestock, and you can scroll right on over to equine. And you'll see we have tons of articles on pasture management, nutrition and feeding, health and care, and so on. And, if you're in Pennsylvania, or even if you're not, we do a lot of seminars, webinars, so you can join us from anywhere and learn about all sorts of different equine topics.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
Yes, you are very welcome.
All right,
Thanks,
care.
Laura.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
There's so many wives' tales about, old timers talking about trees and which trees are bad and which trees are good. That's why I wanted to have her on, because I've heard so many stories about different trees.
Oh, it changes all the time. So I definitely will be going to extension.psu.edu to check it out for sure. And then I'm going to show my husband.
Well, there you have it. Horse Radio Network has thousands of engaging podcasts for horse people, and you can have them sent right to your phone. Just subscribe via your favorite podcast player. This is Coach Jen, and I will be back again soon with another tip. Until then, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements made by guests on the Horse Tip Daily. Please use your own judgment when listening to the tips on this show.